I was 73 years old the night my life ended, or at least, that's what it felt like sitting in my beat-up 2008 Toyota Camry outside General Hospital at 11 p.m., waiting for a ride request that would pay me maybe $12 after gas. The dashboard clock glowed green in the darkness. Thursday, August 15th, 2026, 6 months to the day since I'd buried Alice, 6 months since I'd lost everything. My phone buzzed with another ride request, and I stared at the screen without really seeing it. The passenger's name didn't matter. None of their names mattered anymore. They were just voices in my back seat, lives passing through my car for 10 minutes before disappearing forever, just like mine had disappeared. I accepted the ride and leaned back against the worn seat, feeling the spring that had been digging into my lower back for the past 4 months. The Camry had 247,000 miles on it. I had no idea how many more it had left, but neither of us had much choice. We both had to keep moving or we'd stop completely. Sometimes I wondered which of us would give out first. 6 months ago, I had a life. It wasn't perfect. God knows it wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I had a small house in a decent neighborhood, a wife who'd been my partner for 45 years, 2 children I thought loved me, and 3 grandchildren who called me Pop-Pop and climbed into my lap during Sunday dinners. Now I had a 180-square-foot room that smelled like mildew and my neighbor's cigarette smoke, $70 to last until the end of the month, and a body that hurt in places I didn't know could hurt. But 6 months ago, I had Alice. Every morning, she made coffee with 2 spoonfuls of sugar. One for the cup, one for luck, she'd say with that smile that never got old in 45 years. The smell of that coffee was my routine, my comfort, my home. When the cancer took her in March, it took her fast. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. The coffee smell disappeared with her, and with it went everything I knew about being alive. The first few days after the funeral were a blur of pain and silence. The house that used to overflow with her laughter, her terrible jokes while cooking dinner, her humming while folding laundry, her voice calling me Tommy, even though nobody else had called me that since I was 10, now only had echoes. Gregory and Olivia came to visit those first few weeks. They brought store-bought casseroles with heating instructions on the lid and said things like, "It'll get easier, Dad, and she's in a better place now." But I noticed something different in their eyes. They no longer saw me as their father, the man who'd taught them to ride bikes and helped with algebra homework and walked them down the aisle. They saw me as a problem that needed solving. The solution arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 4 weeks after we'd buried Alice at Oakwood Cemetery under the oak tree she'd always loved. Gregory knocked on my door at 2 p.m. I'd been sitting in the living room, staring at the empty chair where Alice used to do crossword puzzles. I hadn't moved in 3 hours. "Hey, Dad." Gregory's voice was careful, measured, the voice he probably used with difficult clients at his accounting firm. "Can we talk?" I let him in. Olivia was behind him, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. They'd coordinated this, planned it. "Sit down, Dad," Olivia said, gesturing to my own kitchen table like she owned it. Gregory pulled papers from his briefcase, actual papers, printed and organized in a folder. This wasn't a casual visit. This was a presentation. "Dad, we need to discuss the house," he started, not meeting my eyes. "Mom's name was on the deed. Legally, it's passed to us as her heirs." The words didn't make sense at first. I just stared at him. "We've talked to a real estate agent," Olivia continued where Gregory left off. They'd rehearsed this. "The market's good right now. We can get at least $380,000, probably more." "You're selling the house?" My voice came out wrong like someone else was speaking. "We need to, Dad." Gregory finally looked at me, but his eyes were hard. "Rachel and I have Emma's medical bills to deal with. Olivia and Jonathan need to pay down their mortgage. This money, we need it." "Where am I supposed to go?" The question hung in the air. Neither of them answered right away. Finally, Olivia spoke, her tone the same one she'd used when explaining to her students why they'd failed a test. "You'll need to find an apartment, Dad, something affordable on your pension." "My pension is $620 a month." "There are options," Gregory said, sliding one of his printed sheets across the table. "We found several studios in your price range, $550 to $650 a month. You'd have to budget carefully, but—" "Budget carefully?" I almost laughed, except nothing was funny. "On $620 a month, that leaves me $70 for food, medication, utilities, everything?" "You could get a part-time job," Olivia suggested. "Lots of seniors work. It's actually good for you, keeps you active." I looked at my daughter, my little girl who'd cried when I couldn't afford to buy her the expensive prom dress she wanted, so I'd worked overtime for 3 weeks to surprise her with it. The same daughter who'd made me promise to walk her down the aisle because I was the best dad in the world. That girl was gone. In her place was a stranger doing math in her head, calculating how much my existence was costing her. They gave me 6 weeks. 6 weeks to pack up 45 years of marriage, 50 years of memories, and figure out where a 73-year-old man with $620 a month goes to die slowly. I didn't fight them. What was the point? The house was legally theirs. I'd never thought to question whose name was on the deed. Why would I? Alice and I were one person, one life, except in death, apparently, we weren't. The real estate agent came through like a shark smelling blood. Professional photos, staging consultations, open houses every weekend. Strangers walked through my home, opening closets, judging the outdated kitchen, talking about potential and good bones. I packed Alice's clothes into boxes for Goodwill and cried into her favorite sweater, the blue one she wore every Christmas morning. It still smelled like her perfume, that lavender scent she'd worn since our wedding day. Gregory and Olivia came by once during those 6 weeks. They didn't help pack. They just wanted to claim certain items, Mom's jewelry box, Dad's old record collection, the antique mirror in the hallway. They moved through the house like shoppers at an estate sale, pointing at things they wanted, arguing quietly over who got what. I didn't exist during that visit. I was just the background, the old man in the corner, nobody looked at directly. The house sold in 3 weeks for $395,000. Gregory called to tell me, his voice actually excited. "Dad, that's great news. $15,000 over asking." "That's wonderful," I said, and hung up. The closing was scheduled for September 1st. I had to be out by August 31st. I found a room, I couldn't call it an apartment, on Harrison Street in a building that should have been condemned 20 years ago. Room 3C, 3rd floor, no elevator. The landlord was a man named Dimitri who spoke broken English and didn't ask questions as long as I paid cash. $550 a month, security deposit $550, first month rent $550, total $1,100 from my savings, leaving me with $340 until my next pension check. The room was exactly 180 square feet. I measured it because I couldn't believe a human being could actually live in something so small. One wall had a window facing a back alley where garbage bins overflowed and rats fought over scraps at night. The walls were yellowed from decades of cigarette smoke from previous tenants. The carpet was brown, or maybe it had been beige once and turned brown from dirt and neglect. There was a hot plate, a mini fridge that hummed constantly like a dying insect, and a bathroom I shared with 3 other people on my floor. The shower had mold in the corners that no amount of scrubbing would remove. The toilet ran constantly, and the sink faucet dripped every 3 seconds. I counted once when I couldn't sleep. The bed was a twin-size mattress with springs that had given up years ago. Every position hurt. If I lay on my back, springs dug into my spine. On my side, my hip bone pressed against metal. I'd wake up every 2 hours in pain, disoriented, wondering where Alice was before remembering. She was gone, and I was here. In a room the size of a closet, listening to my neighbor Carlos scream at his girlfriend through walls so thin I could hear every word. Listening to the couple above me fight, then make up, their bed frame banging against the floor while I stared at water stains on my ceiling shaped like grotesque faces. I lost 28 pounds in the first 3 months, not on purpose, just because eating became optional when you have $70 a month. I'd walk to the dollar store and buy the cheapest calories, white bread, $1.29, canned beans, 89 cents, eggs when I could afford them, $3.99 for a dozen. I'd make the food last as long as possible. 1 egg for breakfast, 2 slices of bread for lunch with nothing on them, beans heated on the hot plate for dinner, eaten straight from the can to save washing a bowl. I stopped buying coffee, too expensive. I drank tap water that tasted like rust and chemicals. The pain started in my back, a deep burning ache that never went away. Then my knees began swelling, making it hard to climb the 3 flights to my room. My hands trembled constantly, either from malnutrition or stress, I wasn't sure which. I'd look at them sometimes, these old man hands with veins like blue rivers and age spots I didn't remember having, and wonder when I'd gotten so old. When had I become this person? 4 months. 4 months of silence from Gregory and Olivia. No calls, no texts, no happy birthday on July 19th, my 73rd. I sat in my room that day, eating beans from a can, wondering if they'd forgotten or just didn't care anymore. I thought about Alice constantly. I wondered if she could see me from wherever she was. I wondered if she was disappointed in how I'd fallen apart. She'd always been the strong one, the one who held us together when money was tight, or when Gregory went through his rebellious phase, or when Olivia's husband lost his job. "We'll figure it out, Tommy," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "We always do." But she wasn't here to figure this out, and I was drowning. Hunger doesn't care about pride. After 3 weeks of surviving on beans and bread, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't live on $70 a month. The math was simple and brutal. I would starve to death in this room if nothing changed. I signed up to drive for a rideshare app on a Tuesday morning in late September. I'd seen the ads everywhere. Drive and earn on your own schedule. They made it sound easy, almost fun. I didn't care about easy or fun. I cared about not starving. The approval process took 2 days. Background check, vehicle inspection, insurance verification. My 2008 Camry barely passed inspection. The mechanic looked at me with something like pity when he stamped the approval form. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "This car's got, 240,000 miles? Transmission's going to go soon." "I don't have a choice," I said. He nodded. He understood. Lots of people these days didn't have choices. My first day driving, I almost crashed 3 times. The app was confusing. GPS directions appearing and disappearing, passenger messages popping up, ratings to manage. My hands sweated on the steering wheel. Every sudden lane change, every yellow light, every aggressive driver made my heart race. I wasn't fast anymore. My reflexes had slowed. Several passengers sighed audibly when I took too long to make a turn or missed an exit. One kid, maybe 19 years old, sat in my back seat playing games on his phone and muttered, "Jesus Christ, how hard is it to follow GPS?" I didn't respond. I just focused on not killing us both. That first day, I worked from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 14 hours, 42 rides. I earned $127 before expenses. After gas and $28 in the app's commission, I cleared $67. $67 for 14 hours of work. I cried in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven at 9 p.m., my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, my body shaking with exhaustion and despair. An employee knocked on my window to ask if I was okay. I told him I was fine and drove back to my room, where I collapsed on the bed still wearing my shoes because I was too tired to take them off. The routine became automatic after a week. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. to use the bathroom before the morning rush. Brush my teeth with dollar store toothpaste. Splash water on my face. No shower. I could only afford to shower every 3 days to save on hot water. Get dressed in the same clothes I'd worn the day before because I only had 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants, and I couldn't afford a laundromat more than once a week. Drive from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., sometimes 9 p.m. if I needed extra money for medication. My blood pressure pills cost $19 a month at the discount pharmacy. Essential, everything else was optional. Lunch was whatever I could afford at a drive-through dollar menu, usually a plain hamburger. Sometimes nothing, just water from a gas station bathroom sink. Dinner was more beans, eaten cold to save electricity. The physical toll was devastating. My legs swelled so badly that my socks left deep indentations in my ankles. The swelling was so severe I could press my thumb into my shin and leave a dent that took minutes to disappear. My back burned with constant pain. Not acute, just a grinding, relentless ache that made every movement difficult. Getting in and out of the car 50 times a day felt like torture by the end of each shift. I lost more weight. My pants kept falling down until I had to buy a belt from a thrift store for $2. Even then, I had to punch new holes in it because even the tightest setting was too loose. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror one morning and didn't recognize the man staring back. Hollow cheeks. Sunken eyes with dark circles so deep they looked like bruises, skin hanging loose where muscle used to be, gray hair that had thinned dramatically, showing patches of scalp. I looked like a cancer patient, except cancer was the one thing I didn't have. Maybe that would have been easier. At least cancer gets sympathy. Poverty just gets ignored. Sundays were the worst. Sundays used to be sacred. Alice would wake up early and start on her famous roasted chicken. The smell would fill the whole house. Garlic, rosemary, lemon. By noon, Gregory and Olivia would arrive with their families. Emma, Jack, and little Sophie would run through the door yelling "Pop, pop" and tackle me with hugs. We'd eat together at the big table, arguing about politics and sports and which movie to watch after dinner. Now, Sundays were just another day to work. Another day of picking up strangers and listening to fragments of their happy lives while mine disintegrated. I'd drive families to Sunday brunch, watching through the rearview mirror as parents laughed with their kids. I'd pick up elderly couples going to church, holding hands in my back seat, married 50 years and still in love. Each trip was a reminder of everything I'd lost. One Sunday in late November, I picked up a man around my age with his wife. They were going to their granddaughter's birthday party. The wife held a carefully wrapped present on her lap and talked excitedly about seeing the grandkids. "We don't see them enough," she said, "but they always make time for birthdays. Family is everything, you know?" "Yes, ma'am," I said, my voice steady even though something was breaking inside me. Family is everything. When I dropped them off, I watched them walk into a house identical to the one I used to own. Through the front window, I could see balloons and children running around. I could see the family gathering, the hugs, the love. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, unable to drive, unable to move, just staring at that window, at that life that used to be mine. My phone buzzed with the next ride request. I accepted it. I had to. I needed every dollar. 4 months had passed since Gregory and Olivia sold the house. 4 months without a single call, not one message. They'd gotten their money, roughly $197,000 each after paying off the remaining mortgage and closing costs, and I'd gotten this, a room that smelled like defeat and a job that was slowly killing me. I wondered sometimes if they thought about me at all, if Gregory ever looked at his daughter Emma and thought about his own father, alone and struggling. If Olivia ever passed an old man on the street and felt a flicker of guilt, probably not. They'd moved on. Life was busy. They had problems of their own. I was just an inconvenience they'd solved. The week before I met Arthur Whitmore, I'd had the worst week of my entire life, and that included the week Alice died. My car's check engine light came on Monday. I ignored it because I couldn't afford to fix it. Tuesday, I developed a chest pain that scared me enough to stop driving for 2 hours. I sat in a Walmart parking lot, breathing slowly, waiting to see if I was having a heart attack. The pain eventually faded, probably just stress, or hunger, or both. Wednesday, I made $43 for 12 hours of work because the app was slow and competition was fierce. $43. After gas, I cleared $18. $18 for 12 hours. Thursday morning, I woke up and couldn't remember why I should get out of bed. Not in a suicidal way. I wasn't ready to give up yet, even if I didn't know why. Just a deep existential confusion about what the point was. What was I surviving for? To drive strangers around until my body gave out? To die alone in this terrible room where nobody would find me for days? I lay there for an hour, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, thinking about Raymond Clark. My father had died 30 years ago of a massive heart attack at age 65. Quick and sudden, no suffering. I'd always thought that was a blessing. Now I wasn't so sure. At least he died with dignity, at home, surrounded by family. I was going to die in a room that cost $550 a month, probably alone, probably in debt. But I got up anyway, because that's what Raymond had taught me. You get up, you do the work, you don't quit, even when quitting makes sense. A man's character isn't defined by what he does when life is easy, Dad used to say. It's defined by what he does when everything's gone to hell. So I got up. I splashed rusty water on my face. I got in my dying car with its check engine light glowing like a tiny sun of doom. And I opened the app. The first request came at 6:47 a.m. Pickup at General Hospital. Estimated fare, $12. I accepted it, not knowing that in the next hour my entire life was about to change in a way I couldn't possibly imagine. Not knowing that Raymond Clark had planted a seed 60 years ago that was finally, impossibly, about to bloom. I arrived at General Hospital at 6:52 a.m. The passenger name read A. Whitmore. After 10 minutes of waiting, I was about to cancel when the glass doors opened. An elderly man emerged, moving slowly with a dark wooden cane. He wore a perfectly pressed gray suit despite the August heat, navy tie, polished shoes. Everything about him screamed old money. I got out and opened the back door. "Mr. Whitmore?" He looked up and froze. His entire body went rigid. His eyes, pale gray, almost transparent, widened. The cane trembled in his hand and clattered to the concrete. For a terrible moment, I thought he was having a stroke. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need a doctor?" He grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "What's your last name?" What? "Your last name, please." Tears filled his eyes. "Clark. Thomas Clark." He gasped like a drowning man breaking the surface. Tears spilled down his cheeks. "And your father?" "Raymond Clark, but he died 30 years ago." Arthur Whitmore closed his eyes. More tears fell. "I know. I was at his funeral, October 14th, 1995, St. Michael's Church. Back row." My mind went blank. "Who are you?" "Someone who's been looking for your family for 60 years. He wiped his eyes with a white handkerchief. "Someone who owes your father a debt I should have paid 6 decades ago." People were staring. A security guard approached. "Please, Thomas, 1 hour. I need to show you something about your father, something that will change your life." Something in his desperate sincerity made it impossible to refuse. "Where?" "In a bar." He handed me a business card. "Arthur Whitmore, Chairman, Whitmore Textiles Incorporated. My office, downtown. I'll pay you 10 times the fare." The drive took 40 minutes. Neither of us spoke. Arthur kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, tears still streaming, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. We pulled up to a 24-story glass and steel building. The lobby had marble floors and enormous plants. The security guard straightened immediately. "Mr. Whitmore?" The elevator rose to the 20th floor. Arthur finally spoke. "What I'm about to show you will be shocking. You might not believe me at first, but every word is true." The doors opened to a private hallway. One door. Arthur Whitmore, Chairman. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows, antique desk, leather-bound books, expensive paintings. But what caught my attention was a photograph on the desk. 2 young men in front of a small building. One was clearly Arthur, 50 years younger. The other looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same face. He wore grease-stained overalls, hand on Arthur's shoulder. "That's my father," I whispered. "Yes, March 1965, in front of the textile factory I was about to lose." Arthur walked to a painting on the wall, a seascape, and moved it aside, revealing an old safe. "What I'm about to show you has been waiting 60 years for this moment." His hands shook as he turned the combination. The safe opened with a rusty creak. Arthur pulled out a worn leather folder and opened it on his desk. Yellowed papers, photographs, stock certificates. "Sit down, Thomas." I collapsed into the chair. March 1965. I was 30, just inherited my father's textile factory. My business partner, William Crane, had embezzled $200,000 and fled to Canada. I was drowning in debt. Banks refused me loans. I had 2 weeks to come up with $50,000 or lose everything. He slid another photo across the desk, my father and young Arthur, arms around each other. "March 10th, I went to Murphy's bar, planning to drink until I couldn't think anymore. Your father was there. Raymond Clark, 35, just finished his shift at McCarthy's Auto Repair. Overalls stained with oil." Arthur's voice softened. I was drunk, falling apart. I told this complete stranger everything, and when I finished, he said something I'll never forget. "I lost everything once. Someone helped me when they didn't have to. I've been waiting to pass that forward." He pulled out a handwritten contract on bar napkin paper, preserved in plastic. "Your father had $30,000 saved to buy a house. In 1965, that was a fortune for a mechanic. Years of overtime, years of sacrifice. He withdrew the entire amount and gave it to me. Told me to save my father's company, pay him back when I could. No interest, no deadline." My throat tightened. $30,000? He told me about Samuel Brooks, an old man who'd lent him $5,000 when Raymond went bankrupt at 25. Samuel died before Raymond could repay him, so Raymond promised to help someone else the same way. When he met me in that bar, he kept that promise. Arthur showed me a stock certificate. I promised Raymond 30% of the company. We signed this agreement at Murphy's bar, bartender as witness, a man named Vincent Torres. What happened? Why didn't he claim it? Arthur's face darkened. 6 months later, the factory was thriving. I went to give Raymond his shares. He'd quit his job 2 weeks earlier. His house on Archer Avenue was empty. Neighbors said the family left in the middle of the night. No forwarding address. Raymond Clark had vanished. He walked to the window. I searched for 10 years. Private investigators, newspaper ads, government records. Nothing. Then in 1975, I received a letter from Vincent Torres. He was dying and had something to confess. Arthur pulled out an old envelope. William Crane returned to Chicago in 1974. He'd heard I was successful and wanted revenge. He found out about Raymond saving my company. Vincent had mentioned Raymond's name at the bar, not knowing better. My stomach went cold. Crane went to Raymond's house in September 1965, threatened him, said if Raymond didn't walk away from the shares, Crane would hurt his family. He had criminal connections, could make it look like an accident. Raymond came to me one last time. September 22nd, 1965. Said he had to leave, take his family away. Wouldn't tell me why, just said, forget about the shares, take care of your company. That was the last time I saw him alive. Arthur sat heavily. I didn't know about Crane's threats until Vincent's letter. By then, Crane was dead. Car accident in 1978. But Raymond was gone. I learned later he'd changed his name to Ray Martin, lived off the grid, cash jobs only. Came back to Illinois in 1989 after Crane died, but never contacted me. He slid a financial statement across the desk. I kept his shares, waiting. The company now has 43 factories in 8 countries, 8,000 employees. Last year's revenue, $890 million. The current value of Raymond's 30%, $28.5 million. The number didn't compute. $28.5 million. I'd eaten beans from a can last night. It's yours, Thomas. But there are conditions. Before I could process the number, the office door opened. A man in his 50s entered carrying a briefcase, expensive suit, cold eyes. Arthur, I got your message. He stopped when he saw me. Who's this? Benjamin Hayes, my attorney. Ben, this is Thomas Clark, Raymond's son. Benjamin's expression hardened. You're sure? Look at him, Ben. He's Raymond's mirror image. Benjamin approached, studying my face with obvious skepticism. Mr. Clark, I'm going to be direct. Many people have claimed to be Raymond Clark's heir over the years. All frauds. Before we proceed, you'll need to provide documentation and submit to DNA testing. I didn't know about any of this until an hour ago, I said. That's what they all say. Benjamin opened his briefcase, pulled out papers. Birth certificate, death certificate of Raymond Clark, photo identification, and DNA samples from you and Raymond's medical records. I don't have those papers with me. Then come back when you do. Benjamin's tone was ice. Arthur, you're dying. You can't make decisions based on emotion. Ben, I know. You don't know. You're desperate to fulfill this promise before you die. That makes you vulnerable. Benjamin turned to me. If you're legitimate, you'll understand we need to be careful. The shares are worth $28.5 million. That attracts liars. Arthur looked exhausted. Thomas, I believe you. But Ben is right. We need proof. There's something else, Benjamin continued. The shares come with conditions from Arthur's will. You can't sell them for 5 years. You must work with the company, learn the business. If you sell or transfer before 5 years, everything goes to charity. Why? I asked. Because your father wouldn't want you to waste this gift, Arthur said quietly. He gave everything to build something lasting. I'm asking you to honor that, not as charity, as a partner. Benjamin pulled out more papers. There's also the matter of any other heirs. Do you have siblings? Children? 2 children, Gregory and Olivia. Benjamin made notes. Are they aware of this situation? No. Good. Keep it that way until we verify everything. He handed me a card. Gather the documents. We'll schedule DNA testing. This process will take at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. He turned to Arthur. And you need rest. This excitement isn't good for your condition. After Benjamin left, Arthur looked at me apologetically. He's protective, but he's right. We need to do this properly. I understand. Thomas, there's something else you should know. Arthur's voice was barely a whisper. I don't have much time left. 6 months, maybe less. Lung cancer. I'd given up hope of finding you before I died. He gripped my hand. This morning, you appeared like an answer to 60 years of prayers, but we have to be patient. Do this right. Can you do that? Yes. Then go. Gather your documents. Benjamin will call you in 2 days to set up testing. He pressed something into my hand, a check. Take this, for your time today. I looked down. $1,000. Mr. Whitmore, I can't. You can. Consider it an advance. He smiled weakly. And Thomas? Don't tell anyone yet, not even your children, not until everything is verified and legal. I left the office in a daze, the check burning in my pocket. $28.5 million. It couldn't be real. Back in my car, I sat for 20 minutes staring at nothing. Finally, I drove to the county records office. Birth certificate, $40. Death certificate for Raymond Clark, another $40. Most of my remaining money for the month. That evening, I searched online. Whitmore Textiles returned hundreds of results. Major company, exactly as Arthur said. 8,000 employees, international operations. Arthur Whitmore, 85, chairman. Terminal cancer announced 6 months ago. Everything checked out. The next day, Benjamin called. DNA testing scheduled for Friday, 10 a.m., my office. Don't be late. Friday came. The test took 5 minutes, swab inside my cheek. Results in 10 days, Benjamin said coldly. If positive, we'll proceed with verification of documents and begin the transfer process. If negative, this conversation ends. And if I'm verified? Then you become a very wealthy man, Mr. Clark, but wealth comes with responsibility. Arthur's conditions are non-negotiable. 5 years, active participation with the company, or you forfeit everything. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my room on Harrison Street. The beans, the 14-hour days. Yes. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Clark? This is Patricia Morrison. I'm a private investigator. I worked for Mr. Whitmore for 15 years, searching for your family. Oh, hello. I need to meet with you. There's information about your father you need to know. Things Arthur might not have mentioned. Can you meet me tomorrow? Coffee shop on Clark Street, 2 p.m. Something in her voice made me uneasy. What kind of information? The kind that explains why your father really disappeared, and why Arthur feels so guilty about it. I met Patricia Morrison the next afternoon. She was 42, sharp eyes, carrying a worn briefcase. We sat in a corner booth. I've been looking for Raymond Clark since 2010, she began. Arthur hired me after his previous investigators failed. I found things they missed. She opened the briefcase, pulled out a file. Your father didn't just disappear. He was methodical about it. Changed his name to Ray C. Martin, kept his initials, moved to Cleveland, worked cash jobs only. No bank accounts, no credit cards. He lived like a ghost. Why? William Crane. But there's more. She showed me a document. In 1974, Crane didn't just threaten your father. He followed through. Your family's house in Chicago? It burned down 2 months after you moved. Electrical fire, officially, but the fire inspector's report noted suspicious accelerant patterns, never investigated further. My blood ran cold. Crane tried to kill us? Probably meant to scare, but it proves he was serious. Your father knew that. So he stayed hidden even after Crane died in 1978 because he didn't know if Crane had partners. Patricia pulled out another document. But here's what's interesting. In 1989, after Crane was confirmed dead, your father returned to Chicago. He resumed his real name, worked openly as a mechanic, and Arthur found him within 3 months. What? Arthur tracked Raymond down in December 1989. They met. Arthur begged him to accept the shares, offered to have everything legally prepared, but your father refused. Why would he refuse $28.5 million? Patricia smiled sadly. That's the question, isn't it? Arthur never understood either. Your father just said, keep it safe. Maybe someday my family will need it more than I do. Then he walked away. She closed the file. Your father died in 1995. Arthur attended the funeral, hoping to find you or your siblings, but he couldn't work up the courage to approach you. He was ashamed he hadn't protected Raymond from Crane, felt guilty that Raymond lost everything because of him. And he's been searching for you ever since, not just to fulfill a legal obligation, but to ease his conscience before he dies. I sat in silence, processing this. My father had known about the fortune, had chosen to refuse it, had let us struggle when he could have made us wealthy. Why? There's one more thing, Patricia said. You have children, yes? Gregory and Olivia? Yes. How did you... Background check, standard procedure. Mr. Clark, I found something else. Your daughter-in-law Rachel called my office last week. She was crying. Said your granddaughter Emma has acute leukemia. Treatment costs are over $250,000. Insurance covers 60%. Gregory and Olivia need $100,000 immediately for the next round of chemotherapy. My heart stopped. Emma? 7 years old, diagnosed 4 months ago, right around the time Gregory and Olivia sold your house. The pieces clicked into place. They hadn't been greedy. They'd been desperate. They didn't want to tell you because they were ashamed of how they treated you. Rachel thinks you should know, thinks you deserve to understand why they did what they did. Patricia stood. The DNA results should come back in a few days. If they're positive, you'll be a wealthy man. What you do with that wealth, whether you help your children who abandoned you or turn your back on them the way they did to you, that's your decision. She left me sitting there, my coffee untouched, thinking about my 7-year-old granddaughter fighting for her life while I'd been driving strangers around, eating beans, hating my children for something they'd been too proud to explain. The call came Wednesday morning. Benjamin Hayes, his voice less cold than usual. DNA results, 99.97% match. You are Raymond Clark's son. Transfer process begins immediately. Mr. Whitmore has authorized $75,000 advance, deposited today. At 4:47 p.m., I checked my phone. Balance, $75,218. I stared at the number until my vision blurred. Then I called Gregory. Dad? He sounded wary. Saturday, 6 p.m., Ruth's Chris Steakhouse downtown. Both you and Olivia, don't be late. That place is expensive. I'm paying. Just be there. Saturday night, I arrived 30 minutes early in a new suit, $600 from Men's Warehouse, first new clothes in 5 years. When Gregory and Olivia walked in at 6:05, they both stopped. Dad? Olivia's eyes widened. You look... Sit. Jonathan followed Olivia in. They all sat, exchanging nervous glances. Did you win the lottery? Gregory asked carefully. Something like that. I ordered whiskey. First alcohol in 6 months. I need to tell you about your grandfather, about something that happened 60 years ago. I told them everything. Murphy's Bar, the $30,000, William Crane, the vanishing, the shares waiting 60 years, the $28.5 million. Absolute silence. Gregory's hands shook as he picked up the documents I'd brought. $28.5 million. Oh my God, Dad, Olivia's eyes filled with tears. This is a miracle. We can... Stop! My voice cut through her excitement. Before you start planning, I need to say something. They went quiet. 4 months ago, you sold the house where your mother and I raised you. You gave me 6 weeks' notice with a $620 pension. I lived in a room that smelled like mildew. I ate beans from cans. I drove 14 hours a day at 73. My legs swelled so badly I couldn't walk. I had chest pains but couldn't afford a doctor. Gregory looked down. In 4 months, you never called once. Not on your mother's birthday, not on mine. You forgot I existed. But today I mentioned $28.5 million, and suddenly you're family again. Interesting timing. The silence was crushing. Dad, we're so sorry, Olivia started. There is an excuse, actually. I looked at Gregory. How's Emma? His face went white. What? Your 7-year-old daughter, the one with acute leukemia, how is she? Rachel appeared in the doorway, crying. I told him, I'm sorry, Greg, but he deserved to know. Olivia covered her face with her hands. She's dying, Gregory whispered. Treatment's not working. We need $100,000 for experimental therapy. Insurance won't cover it. That's why we sold the house. We were desperate and ashamed. How could we ask for sympathy when we'd just thrown you out? We're terrible people, Olivia sobbed. You have every right to hate us. I let the words hang in the air. I don't hate you. I'm angry and hurt, but I don't hate you. And I'm going to help Emma. I slid a check across the table. $70,000. Gregory stared at it like a hallucination. Dad, you don't... She's my granddaughter. She needs help. Olivia grabbed my hand. We don't deserve this. No, but Emma does. The door opened. Arthur Whitmore appeared in a wheelchair, pushed by Benjamin. Arthur looked terrible, gaunt, oxygen tube in his nose, skin gray. "Forgive the intrusion," Arthur said weakly, "but I needed to be here." He looked at Gregory and Olivia with surprising intensity. "Your grandfather saved my life, not just my business, my actual life. I was going to walk into Lake Michigan that night. Raymond gave me everything without asking anything in return." Arthur coughed, a rattling sound. "The money your father inherits has conditions. He cannot sell for 5 years. He must work with Whitmore Textiles. If he sells before 5 years, everything goes to charity." Benjamin explained, "Your father can't give you inheritance money, not for 5 years. The check came from his advance, not the principal." "I don't care about money," Gregory said quickly. "I just want Dad back." Arthur studied him. 4 months ago, you cared enough about money to make him homeless. You need to prove you've changed, not with words, with actions." He turned to me. "Thomas, your father trusted me when he had no reason to. He gave me a second chance. I'm asking you to consider giving your children that same chance, not because they deserve it, but because that's what Raymond would have done." "I have conditions," I said. Gregory nodded quickly. "Anything." "First, Emma's treatment is covered, but that's it for now. You prove you've changed before we discuss more. Second, family dinner every Sunday. No excuses. You show up because I'm your father, not because I'm rich. Third, after 1 year when I receive dividends, I'll consider helping financially if you've shown genuine change. Fourth, if I die before 5 years, shares go to you equally, but you must continue the company work and honor your grandfather's legacy." I looked at both of them. "Can you do that?" Gregory came around the table and wrapped his arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. "Yes, God, yes. I'm so sorry, Dad." Olivia joined us, all three crying together. Arthur smiled. "Raymond would be proud, Thomas." 2 weeks later, Benjamin called. His voice was heavy. "Arthur passed away last night, peacefully, at home. The funeral is Thursday. He requested you speak." Thursday, I stood before hundreds, CEOs, politicians, community leaders. I spoke about a promise kept for 60 years, about 2 men who barely knew each other but changed each other's lives forever. After the service, Samantha Whitmore, Arthur's daughter, now CEO, approached me. "My father died at peace because of you. He'd want you on the board of directors. Come see me next week." Benjamin found me in the parking lot afterward. "One more thing." Arthur left instructions. He handed me a small wooden box. Said you'd understand when you read it. At home in my new 2-bedroom apartment, I opened the box. Inside was a leather journal, my father's handwriting on the first page. Property of Raymond Clark, Private Thoughts, 1994. I flipped through pages about daily life, work, family. Near the end, an entry stopped my heart. March 15th, 1994. Arthur found me. After all these years, brought stock certificates, said they were mine, 30% of Whitmore Textiles, worth $8 million now. I told him no. He cried. Said he'd searched 29 years, said I deserved it. But I thought about Samuel Brooks's son. Inherited millions at 23, dead from overdose at 28. Never worked a day, never knew the value of earning something. I don't want that for Thomas. I want my son to know what it means to work, to earn his way, to understand that character isn't built in comfort, it's built in struggle. So I told Arthur, keep the shares. If Thomas ever truly needs them, not wants but needs, if he loses everything and still stands up, still keeps his integrity, then he'll be ready. Then money won't corrupt him. Arthur asked how he'd know when that time came. I said, when Thomas has nothing and chooses to remain a good man anyway, that's when he's ready. I hope that day never comes. But if it does, I trust Arthur to recognize it. The journal fell from my hands. My father had known everything. He'd planned this. He'd let me struggle because struggle would build character. He'd let me lose everything to see if I'd keep my integrity. And I had. Even at my lowest, no home, no hope, no dignity, I hadn't stolen, hadn't cheated, hadn't abandoned my values. I'd suffered with integrity. The inheritance wasn't a gift. It was a test I didn't know I was taking. And somehow, impossibly, I'd passed. I looked at my father's photograph on my desk. I understand now, Dad. I understand everything. I sat in Arthur's old office, now mine, on the 20th floor. At 77, I was the oldest board member. The company had grown 40% under Samantha's leadership, with me helping guide decisions. I'd learned slowly but steadily. Visited factories, met workers, understood operations. I brought something the other board members didn't: my father's integrity. His commitment to treating people fairly, his understanding that profit without principle was worthless. The Raymond Clark Foundation launched 6 months ago. Housing, food, medical care for elderly people abandoned by their families. Last month, 43 people helped. This month, 60. Gregory and Olivia came to Sunday dinner without fail. Emma was in remission, hair growing back in soft curls. She called every night, "Good night, Pop, love you." Gregory volunteered at the foundation. Olivia taught financial literacy classes. They were trying, really trying. 1 year left until the 5-year requirement ended. Then I could do whatever I wanted with the shares, but I wouldn't sell. I decided to keep them, keep working, keep building the legacy my father started 60 years ago with $30,000 in a handshake. I picked up Raymond's journal, kept in my desk now, and read the final entry. Wealth isn't what you have, it's what you're willing to give. Character isn't what you do when life is easy, it's what you do when everything is hard. If Thomas is reading this, then Arthur kept his promise, and my son needed help. I hope the money serves him well, but more than that, I hope he remembers the money is just paper. What matters is what kind of man he chooses to be with it. Be kind, son. Be honest. Be generous. That's the real inheritance I'm leaving you. I closed the journal and looked out at the sunset painting the sky orange and purple. I'm trying, Dad, I said to the empty office. Every day, I'm trying to be the man you raised me to be. To use this gift the way you would have wanted, to remember that the real wealth isn't in the bank account, it's in the lives we touch, the kindness we show, the integrity we maintain, even when no one's watching. I thought about the 43 people sleeping in warm beds tonight because of the foundation, about Emma, alive and laughing, because I'd been able to help, about Gregory and Olivia, slowly becoming the children I'd raised them to be. You gave me more than money, Dad. You gave me a test that taught me who I really am. You gave me the chance to prove I was your son, not by blood but by character, and you trusted that when I had nothing left, I'd still choose to be good. I smiled, tears in my eyes. I hope I made you proud, did you? And somewhere, I knew Raymond Clark was smiling back.